began to explore her position. She knew that Cecil was a guest and too grown up to play a trick on, though George was surely in her power. But having the power, she couldn't think what to do with it. Now Cecil had his hand on George's shoulder, as if consoling him, though he was laughing too, more quietly than before. The curves of their two hats nudged and overlapped. She thought there was something nice in Cecil's laugh after all, a little whinny of good fun, even if, as so often, she was not included in the joke. Then Cecil raised his head and saw her, and said, "Oh, hello," as if they'd already met several times and enjoyed it. George was confused for a second, peered at her as he quickly buttoned his jacket, and said, "Cecil missed his train," rather sharply.
"Well, clearly,"
said Daphne, who chose a certain dryness of tone against the constant queasy likelihood of being teased. "And then, of course, I had to see Middlesex," said Cecil, coming forward and shaking her hand. "We seem to have tramped over much of the county."
"He brought you the country way,"
said Daphne.
"There's the country way and the suburban way, which doesn't create such a fine impression. You just go straight up Stanmore Hill."
George wheezed with embarrassment, and also a kind of relief. "There, Cec, you've met my sister." Cecil's hand, hot and hard, was still gripping hers in a frank, convivial way. It was a large hand, and somehow unfeeling, a hand more used to gripping oars and ropes than the slender fingers of 16-year-old girls. She took in his smell of sweat and grass, the sourness of his breath. When she started to pull her fingers out, he squeezed again, for a second or two, before releasing her. She didn't like the sensation, but in the minute that followed she found that her hand held the memory of his hand, and half wanted to reach out through the shadows and touch it again.
"I was reading poetry," she said, "but I'm afraid it grew too dark to see."
"Ah," said Cecil, with his quick, high laugh that was almost a snigger. But she sensed he was looking at her kindly. In the late dusk they had to peer closely to be sure of each other's expressions. It made them seem particularly interested in each other. "Which poet?" She had Tennyson's poems, and also the Granta, with 3 of Cecil's own poems in it, Corley, Dawn at Corley, and Corley, Dusk. She said,
"Oh, Alfred, Lord Tennyson."
Cecil nodded slowly, and seemed amused by searching for the kind and lively thing to say. "Do you find he still holds up?" he said.
"Oh, yes,"
said Daphne firmly, and then wondered if she'd understood the question. She glanced between the lines of trees, but with a sense of other shadowy perspectives, the kind of Cambridge talk that George often treated them to, where things were insisted on that couldn't possibly be meant. It was a refinement of teasing, where you were never told why your answer was wrong.
"We all love Tennyson here," she said, "at 2 acres.
Now Cecil's eyes seemed very playful, under the broad peak of his cap. "Then I can see we shall get on," he said. "Let's all read out our favourite poems. If you like to read aloud."
"Oh, yes,"
said Daphne, excited already, though she'd never heard Hubert read out anything except a letter in the Times that he agreed with.
"Which is your favourite?"
she said, with a moment's worry that she wouldn't have heard of it. Cecil smiled at them both, savouring his power of choice, and said, "Well, you'll find out when I read it to you."
"I hope it's not the Lady of Shalott,"
said Daphne. "Oh, I like the Lady of Shalott."
"I mean, that's my favourite,"
said Daphne. George said, "Well, come up and meet Mother," spreading his arms to shepherd them.
"And Mrs. Carbeck's here too,"
said Daphne.
"by the way."
"Then we'll try and get rid of her," said George.
"Well, you can try,"
said Daphne. "I'm already feeling sorry for Mrs. Carbeck," said Cecil, "whoever she may be." "She's a big black beetle," said George.